Hello, welcome to this video on Digicomp Edu Strand 3.4 Self-Regulated Learning. In this video, we look at self-regulated learning strategies. In particular, we look at universal design for learning. This video will explore how universal design for learning can support self-regulated learning. One might ask, how can teachers fit self-regulated learning teaching strategies into an already overloaded curriculum, or a curriculum that's largely assessment-driven? In addition, research has taught that self-regulated learning needs to be taught or modelled within its subject area. This video will explore how universal design for learning can overcome some of these challenges. Universal design for learning is a framework that provides all students with equal opportunities to learn. There are three principles of universal design for learning: multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action or expression. Multiple means of engagement. This principle simulates motivation and sustained enthusiasm for learning. For example, students can choose which type of learning that is most interesting for them, or which type of learning topic they might need to pursue. This encourages them to identify what's of interest for them and to deepen their knowledge in this particular area. Also, looking at how to interpret a topic using different areas. So, for example, if we're looking at science and a student is interested in dinosaurs, perhaps there could be a particular focus on that. Or if a student is interested in sea diving, maybe they can take this particular angle towards science. The second principle is multiple means of representation. In this principle, we present information and content in a variety of ways to support learners' understanding. This allows them to choose to engage in a medium that best suits their needs. For example, providing a piece of text in audio, video, and graphical ways facilitates multiple means of representation. The student can choose the approach that best suits their needs. The last principle is multiple means of action or expression. This provides students with opportunities to demonstrate their learning in a variety of ways. For example, allowing a choice in terms of how they represent their learning. Rather than expecting all students to write something, perhaps students can act, demonstrate, draw, or speak about their learning. This principle provides students with choice in particular and an opportunity for agency over their own learning. There are a number of different elements to this that allows learners to become expert learners or self-regulated learners. Under each of these principles are a number of sub-areas that demonstrate a learner's ability to become self-regulated or take ownership of their own learning. Novak explores how UDL allows educators to remove barriers to learning by offering voice or choice. When we provide students with agency, we encourage them to be motivated within the learning environment and engaged and creative. Because they have choice and responsibility for choosing their own modes of learning, it encourages them to be more creative. This in turn produces education that's more equitable and inclusive. However, to date, when universal design for learning is adopted, it's largely teacher-driven and not made explicit to learners. We're proposing to use universal design for learning in an explicit way to support self-regulated learning and to teach self-regulating learning skills. As mentioned previously, self-regulated learning needs to be made explicit. Using universal design for learning as a conversational framework in an explicit way is critical. Providing opportunities to discuss what the learner brings or learner incomes into the learning environment and discussing their particular motivations, goals, preferences and strengths so we can adapt the learning environment to meet their needs is critical. For example, within a class we might discuss the UDL principles: multiple modes of representation, multiple modes of engagement, and multiple modes of expression. There may be a discussion about how different students like to learn, How would they like to demonstrate their learning? In what ways would they like to express this? In what ways would they like to engage with their teachers or peers? How often? Would they like to talk to them? Would they like to write information or draw information? This provides opportunities for us to make universal design for learning explicit and facilitate a broader conversation about learning opportunities and choice. Within a classroom environment, the last topic to be discussed may be how these individual needs impact how the overall class collaborates, express and engages with each other. So for example, if one student likes to watch videos, but another student likes to be taught by the teacher, how can we deal with these different challenges within one classroom environment? Encouraging students to design classroom environments and look at what their classroom environment might look like may facilitate this. So for example, the teacher might explain this, but you might have one child that looks at a video and puts on earphones and then waits for group work to ask the teacher questions about this. By being aware of individual needs and how we can meet these individual needs in a broader context, it encourages self-awareness of how individuals in a classroom learn and also how this impacts how they might collaborate in groups. So as I said, if a student prefers to read and understand a topic first before they engage in group work, it may create more understanding within a group work that when they see one student not participating, that they're aware that they want to understand the topic before they speak, whereas other students might prefer to speak and talk. This encourages learners to be empathetic toward their peers when working in groups and allow them to negotiate the learning environment to meet both the individual and peer group needs. By leveraging from universal design for learning in an explicit way, it facilitates learner agency and self-regulated learning. By using the universal design for learning framework in this way, educators can accept learner variability as a strength to be leveraged. So by looking at how people prefer to learn, and if one person prefers to learn better by drawing, another by talking, you can compose a group of people with different strengths so they can use these within the learning environment. In addition to providing a design framework, universal design for learning also contributes to the construct of student-centrism by emphasising the role of universal design for learning in the development of expert learners. The earlier that the principles of universal design for learning are introduced to students, the greater are the opportunities to support the development of these key skills for independent learning. This aligns to a previous video we looked at in which self-regulated learning is on a continuum and we need to scaffold the journey from dependent to independent learner. To develop expert learners, we need to be able to curate and process knowledge and make informed choices about their learning needs and outcomes. So students need to be able to gather and organise information effectively in line with their goals. They need to be able to process information and have the skills to analyse and synthesise learning materials to see do they meet their goals. And based on this, they need to make informed choices about their learning needs and outcomes to achieve their full potential. Technology is a critical enabler within this learning environment. Without technology, it can be difficult to allow us to meet the needs of diverse learners. For example, in terms of multiple forms of expression, technology enables students to choose how they express their learning, individually or visually, through mind maps, images, infographics, posters or videos. It allows students to be more creative in how they learn. In addition, it allows us to represent information in different ways. For example, if we have a written piece of text or a PowerPoint presentation, using different modes of approaches through immersive readers allows students to listen to content rather than reading it if they have literacy difficulties. Also, AI applications such as Notebook-LM allows us to convert content into different formats should we wish. In addition, technology allows diverse engagement. It enables students to engage with different modes and topics of interest beyond the teacher. So if students have a particular interest, as I say, in an area such as dinosaurs, but teachers do not know about this, maybe students can take responsibility for looking for information about it outside their class and allows us to access information beyond the four classroom walls. It also reduces dependence on teachers and recognises that learning can take place across boundaries. In particular, universal design for learning has an impact on student engagement. Evidence has shown that UDL promotes decision making in the class and has the potential to boost student engagement significantly. Within a study conducted by Sanguti, it was shown that when students were given choices, it supported intrinsic motivation. Something as simple as that can support self-regulated learning. So in summary, universal design for learning represents a fundamental shift in how we approach education. It provides a model to allow us to explicitly teach self-regulated learning skills by creating individual awareness of personal learning needs and preferences, identifying how these affect peers and the overall environment, provides opportunities for us to negotiate and work together to identify the collective needs of the class, and also work towards learners becoming self-regulated, independent or expert learners. We will look at more strategies in the next video.